Hello, Peter4Son0 here, Osiris, and welcome to my review of Xenoblade Chronicles. As a person who frequently plays RPGs, I knew I had to get Xenoblade Chronicles, if only to see if it's as good as people say it is, and to dust off my Nintendo Wii and play the system a bit. I got a launch date from EB Games, which also got me the pre-order bonus, which was an art book. At first, I had doubts about the game, since I thought the combat system seems kinda boring from YouTube videos. But I have to say that Xenoblade Chronicles really surprised me as I was playing through it. Now, after playing through the main story in Xenoblade Chronicles, I would like to give my overall opinion on the game. Xenoblade Chronicles is an RPG with real-time combat. It was developed by Monolith Soft and published by Nintendo of America. Graphically, the game looks pretty good. Well, considering it's on the Wii. The game does have some low-res textures here and there, but overall it looks pretty good graphically. But even if I did say that the game's graphics looks good, not great, I still have to say that Xenoblade Chronicles is one of the most visually appealing games that the Nintendo Wii got to offer. And that has got to do with the art style and how massive the world of Xenoblade Chronicles is. The art style is fantastic. The environment looks great, and each area you travel to in the game are very unique from each other, which will make you go wow each time you go to a new area. And adding with how massive the world of Xenoblade Chronicles is, I have to say I was very impressed with the game's overall visuals. So while the graphics are not the best that we got to offer, the art style and overall scope of Xenoblade Chronicles really pushes the visuals of the game to the point I can confidently say that Xenoblade Chronicles got one of the best visuals that Nintendo Wii got to offer. But if there was one thing I didn't like about the visuals, it would probably be the character models. Well, the non-Mechon character models. Most of them look a bit bland to me. There were a few good ones like Dunban and Melia, but overall I didn't really care for the character models for most of the non-Mechon race. I do have to add that I really like the Mechon designs. They look pretty cool overall. The story in Xenoblade Chronicles is also great. Xenoblade Chronicles takes place in a universe where the people live on two giant titans which once fought against each other and then killed each other in the process. They are called the Mechonis and Bionis. On the Bionis live the organic life forms, such as the Homs, while the Mechonis is home to machines known as the Mechon. The races that live on the different titans are constantly at war with each other. The game gets you to play as Shulk, a young boy who is researching the Monado, which is a mysterious sword that can somehow rip through the Mechon armor quite easily, and can also grant that ability to other weapons within a certain range. His home is slowly being invaded by the Mechon, which is led by a Mechon with a face. The sword he was researching then becomes his to use. He gains an ability that previous owners of the Monado didn't have, which is the ability to see the future. And so begins Shulk's journey to destroy all of the Mechon in an attempt to avenge all the lives that was taken in his home. Overall, the story in Xenoblade Chronicles is great. The intro starts out strong, and the story remains pretty interesting throughout the game, from the start to its eventual end. The story is also well paced, which is kinda surprising since the last Monolith Soft game I played, which was the Xenosaga series, did suffer from pacing problems. I have to also add that the cutscenes look great as well. Character-wise, I say Xenoblade Chronicles' cast of characters were pretty good, and each of the party members is pretty unique from each other. There's also a decent amount of character interaction with the heart-to-heart that you can activate when you're in a specific part of the game. Voice acting is also pretty good, and pretty unique seeing how Xenoblade Chronicles was dubbed in Europe rather than States. Though if you don't like the British voice acting, there is the Japanese dub option if you want to hear it in the original Japanese. But there is a lip-syncing problem in the text-based cutscenes. But the lip-syncing in the actual cutscenes are pretty good. Soundtrack is fantastic, definitely one of the best I've heard this gen. Overall, Xenoblade Chronicles has fantastic presentation, with impressive visuals, good story, and a fantastic soundtrack, with only a few issues holding it back, such as how the non-Mechon character look a bit iffy to me, and the occasional lip-syncing problem.
I see it.
Oh boy, this will take a bit of explaining. First, I get into the combat system. The game uses a real-time combat system that's akin to an MMO. Each character is set into a defined role, such as Ryan and Dunban being tanks. The characters are also pretty unique from each other, like for example, Ryan being the more conventional tank with his arts mainly reducing the physical defense and getting aggro, while Dunban specializes in dodging his enemy attacks. When you engage in battle, you're able to do an auto attack when you're near the enemy, and be able to select arts from the menu. Each arts will have different functions, so experimenting with what combination of arts that suits your playstyle will be key to advancing the game. The combat system also takes account into positioning, as some arts will have additional effects if you're at the side enemy or behind one, such as Shulk's backslash art having more damage when attacking from behind. There's also the party gauge, which you can see at the top of the screen. When one of the bars is filled, you're able to do certain stuff such as reviving a character, or ordering a specific character to do a specific art. Once it's full, you're able to do a combo attack, which allows you to pause the battle and insert what kind of attack each of your character will do on a single opponent. There's also a mechanic called Vision, where you're able to take a glimpse of the future of what enemies will do. You have a chance to change it. Vision will allow you to see what kind of attack the enemy is using and how devastating it is. Whether the changes you make good or bad will be up to you. And the change the future song will play if you do change it, even if you do change it for the worse and you get a game over, which is kind of hilarious if I think about it. Also, take note that this RPG doesn't have any items, so any healing is done via arts. But several characters got a few healing arts, so having a party without a dedicated healer, which is Sharla, is doable with selecting the right arts. Overall, the combat system in Xenoblade is great. It's engaging, and each character is very unique from each other gameplay wise, so you can mix up the party occasionally. It's not the best combat system in an RPG I've played, but it's tons of fun regardless. But I do have certain issues with it. The most defining problem for me when I was going through the game is the character AI. They're adequate for a good amount of the game, but there are certain instances in the game where the AI can be very problematic, and I found I had to take control of another character in order to progress, while outside grinding. And the AI is one of the reasons why I control Dunban when he's in my party. Another problem I had with Xenoblade is that the tutorials doesn't really explain the vision mechanics very well. Well, in terms of what icon represents enemy talents, physical attacks, or aether attacks. So at the start you won't really know which art to use that will be ideal for you when you have vision. But as on the side, I give you some tips of what attack represents what. Just look at the fonts of the attack. Red fonts represent physical attacks, which you can counter with Shulk's speed art. White fonts are enemy talents, which you can counter with Shulk's sheer arts. And purple fonts represent ether attacks. Another thing I found a problem with is the camera. The camera is okay for the most part when you're fighting normal sized enemies, but when you're fighting giant enemies, the camera can be problematic as the camera is placed at a strange angle when you're fighting against the giant enemy, which might prevent you to see where your allies are positioned, and even other enemies in the area. Next thing I talk to you about is the leveling system in Xenoblade Chronicles. It got several systems in place for the progression system. After each battle, you get EXP, AP, and SP. XP is self-explanatory, where you get enough, you'll level up, which will increase your stats. Next is AP, which you're able to use to decide what kind of arts you want to upgrade. Also, you need to get skill books in order to upgrade the arts even further, which is kind of a hassle in my honest opinion. SP is used to upgrade your skill tree, which will give you several bonuses when you go into battle. There are 3 skill trees you can pick for each character. Overall, the leveling system is pretty good and give you a good amount of customization. Next thing I talk about briefly is the gem crafting system and the Friends Affinity chart. Gem crafting allows you to create different kinds of gems, which will increase your stats or give you various bonuses. You'll be able to put gems into your equipment if they have a slot available. In order to create gems, you need ether crystals, which you can obtain by either defeating enemies or collecting them from ether crystal deposits in the environments. Once you get the crystals, you need to go to the gem stall, which will allow you to create them. Once you're in the gem crafting menu, you need to pick 2 people to do the forging and which crystals you want to go into the forge. Carefully pick what crystal to put and pay attention to the percentage. If you get a certain value to 100%, that will be turned to a gem. Any other stats that reach lower than 100 will be turned into cylinders, which you can use for gem making later. After you pick the crystals, pick 2 people who engage in the gem forging. Depending on the character, your gem percentage will go up. Character affinity will also give bonuses to the percent bonuses. The gem crafting system overall is a pretty good way to increase your stats and will help you considerably in battle. But I have to say the tutorial doesn't really do a good job of explaining gem crafting. Next is the friend affinity chart, which is basically a chart that keeps track of all the unique NPCs you come across and determines what their affinity with each other is. Reaching certain affinities with certain characters will have several benefits, such as unlocking hearts of hearts with the main characters you control. Exploration in Xenoblade Chronicles is fantastic, as the world of Xenoblade Chronicles is huge and the environments are a blast to go through, especially with how it rewards you with EXP and sometimes with landmarks, so you'll be able to fast travel. Last thing we're talking about is how the quests are set up. The main quests are pretty standard, where I tell you what you have to do in order to progress the story. The side quests are mostly fetch quests and slay a number of monsters, and not that interesting to be honest. But there's one problem with it. Well, besides that it's mostly fetch quests and slay X amount of monsters. There's one nitpick I have with the few of the side quests, is that the quest indicator kinda sucks for some missions. Mostly missions where you have to go to a certain character to complete a quest, but sometimes it doesn't really show you the general direction, or even if that character is there at that specific time. Difficulty wise, I found the game to be on the moderate, a bit hard difficulty, though most of the difficulty in the game will really depend on your level. Well, more so than other RPGs, since your attack will miss any enemy that are 5 levels above you. Likewise, the game took me 55 hours to complete the main story, though there's tons of content with all the side quests you have in this game. But overall, Xenoblade Chronicles got great gameplay, with a few stuff holding it back, such as most of the side quests being fetch quests, and the quest indicator being very iffy. Also, iffy AI as well. Overall, Xenoblade Chronicles is a fantastic game. It got great presentation with story, environments, soundtrack, and overall art style, and got great gameplay with its MMO-style combat system being both unique and engaging, the leveling system being pretty good, and the exploration is fantastic. There are problems with the game, such as the side quest being not all that interesting, character models being a bit bland to me, the camera issues, and bad AI, but the flaws doesn't really hold the game back much in my honest opinion. I personally give Xenoblade Chronicles a 9.5 out of 10. A fantastic game, which has flaws, but it doesn't really hold it back much.
If you think the Homs, the people of Bionis, are just waiting here for you to pick us off, you are sorely mistaken.